RWBY Volume 8 is just around the corner, with less than a month to go until the first episode releases, and today we got the official trailer for the entire volume. I'll leave a link in the description below to the Rooster Teeth Animation YouTube channel so you guys can go there and check that trailer out for yourselves. It's about a minute long, and admittedly a number of the scenes that we see within it are ones that we have seen previously from other clips that have already released for Volume 8 thus far, but there are a number of new scenes as well as new words spoken by certain characters that give a little insight in what we might come to expect moving into Volume 8. So that's what we will be breaking down in this video and giving analysis to. So I will say spoiler warning for those who want to go into Volume 8 completely blind, as with analyzing the trailer we will see things that we haven't seen previously, etc. So just a fair warning on that. Though I will say in non-spoiler territory, the first episode is slated to release on November 7th if you weren't previously aware. But now from this point forward we will be getting into some spoilers. The trailer itself seems to start off with a conversation between Salem and Cinder. A small portion of probably a larger conversation, but Salem is saying, "This game is not yours to win. It's mine. All you need concern yourself with is your ability to act when I tell you to." And Cinder's response to this is saying, "Without you, I am nothing." And while this is happening, the first scene that we see is one of the last ones we see in Volume 7 with the whale arriving at Atlas, and then we see Salem holding the Relic of Knowledge and Cinder, of course, bowing to her. So it seems that Cinder is acting like she's put in her place by Salem, though we know she's quite rebellious, still wanting to go after RWBY, and still has her own vendetta, and likely, if Cinder is able to acquire more maiden powers, will turn against Salem eventually, but she still seems quite subservient as of right now, especially with Salem arriving with all of the Grimm and having that massive display of power, something that Cinder certainly can't stand up to at this point. One thing we also see is when Salem says, "All you need to concern yourself with is your ability to act when I tell you to," certainly sounds like, following orders, and we all know how that can lead to certain people's demise, and we are given a reminder of that by seeing Crow holding Clover's pin, still covered in Clover's blood. Certainly a harsh reminder that orders sometimes come with dire consequences. You also need to be able to think for yourself, and in Cinder's case, that's probably not the best scenario, as her thinking for herself. She's very selfish and, you know, wanting to go on her own path, probably not going to end up in the, greatest scenario, but still, this is an interesting little look ahead for how we're going to see Cinder and Salem's dynamic play out moving into Volume 8. That Cinder obviously did bring the Relic of Knowledge to Salem and is still subservient to her, that if she is able to somehow get the Relic of Creation, she'll likely bring that to Salem as well, and keep obeying Salem for the time being, but I think eventually that's going to change as we move forward. One thing we don't see, though, is Neo in that picture, so whether Salem even knows about Neo, that Neo was the one who actually got the Relic of Knowledge, that's something that we will have to see in Volume 8, and hopefully Neo will backstab her in the future, but we'll have to see what happens there. With Cinder saying, "Without you, I am nothing," and her inspiration coming from Cinderella, that certainly implies that Salem is actually the fairy that gave Cinder this chance to break away from poverty, from the life she once had, and we already knew that to be the case with Cinder's inspiration and Salem pulling her from that, but we'll see if Cinder will end up returning to nothing when the clock strikes midnight, and possibly the clock might strike midnight for her in Volume 8, especially if Neo does end up backstabbing her, etc. The next scene we move into is a number of scenes seemingly overlaid with one larger conversation, so we'll go over the conversation first and then all of the different clips that we see throughout it. It is a conversation between our protagonists, with RWBY speaking as well as Ren, Nora, and Jaune. RWBY is saying that Atlas is only Salem's current target. After she's done here, she'll move on to the rest of Remnant. But Ren is arguing that there are people there who need them now. And Nora is in opposition to Ren, saying we have to warn them, implying warn the rest of Remnant, warn the other kingdoms that Salem ain't hiding anymore, she ain't having the Grimm do her dirty work, and she's ready to go and take the relics by force personally. And then we get the new addition to this conversation. Up until this point, we had seen this previously in another preview, but Jaune adds on, "Let's go for both. get Amity back up and running, and evacuate Mantle. So this is the point where we're going to see our protagonist group split to cover the two different objectives. Essentially, we've seen the two groups already with the other previews that we've had for Volume 8 as well as this trailer. We're going to have Team RWBY minus Yang, but plus Nora and Penny, and in the other group we're going to have Yang, Jean, Ren, and Oscar. Likely it's going to be Jean, Yang, Ren, and Oscar that are covering the evacuate Mantle part. We've seen in other previews where they're defending people against the Grimm as they are evacuating, and raiding Pietro's shop to get some hover bikes to be able to travel across Mantle and other places in Atlas, I guess on the continent of Solitus, a little bit quicker. And then it seems Team RWBY is going to handle other objectives. Now, there are a few interesting scenes that we see while this conversation is playing out. One of which is a bit of police brutality towards Watts, as it seems Watts and his adjacent prison mate Jacques are being interrogated by the Atlas military, and they are not very happy with Watts, it seems, as they use the back end of the gun and slam it into Watts' head. Jacques is obviously not very happy about that. We see him in the cell next to Watts, as he's probably about to be interrogated next, and could definitely expect some of the same treatment. Honestly, deserves a little bit of that treatment for all of the crap that he's done and the lives that he has ruined, but still, I digress, not really ethical, though in the entire state of things, ethical is kind of not really on Ironwood's agenda, let alone possibly the rest of the military, so we'll see how things play out there. Regardless, Watts and Jacques we will see again in Volume 8, and they will still have a role to play. Watts possibly even going to be convinced to help get Amity up and running, which would be an interesting route to take under threat of death or execution or something like that. Watts might actually turn against Salem, or they might have something to use against him. Maybe Watts has a daughter, maybe Watts has family still in Atlas, or something along those lines. I'm curious to see where they're going to go with that, what information they can get from Watts and Jacques, and see how that goes. Perhaps Jacques might actually end up joining Salem, though Salem probably wouldn't have any use for him, so, you know, we'll see where all that goes. And then we see Nora seemingly going to break open a hard light dust door, or electricity dust. It doesn't really have the same glow as hard light, but it looks like it's a hard light dust shield or hard light dust door, possibly electricity dust to keep, oh, I don't know, Huntsman inside. I think this is probably where Crow and Robin might be imprisoned, and Team RWBY, or should I say Team RWBY minus Yang plus Nora and Penny, are all going to try to break Crow and Robin out of jail, which would make sense considering that Crow and Robin at the end of Volume 7 were being towed away to jail for, you know, Clover's death, and also there was an arrest warrant out for Crow. Not really sure why Robin was arrested, I guess just being wrong place, wrong time sort of thing. Still, both of them are under arrest, and Team RWBY, it would make sense for them to want to break them out of prison. But for trying to get Amity up and running, this is why I say they're probably going to need Watts to be able to do that, because no one in their group is really attuned with the technology of Amity. Sure, Weiss is from Atlas. She would have some technological expertise, you would imagine, being the heiress to the Schnee-Dust Company for 19 years, up until her father pretty much disowned her, but she might be able to help in some capacity, but she's no Atlassian scientist. She's not going to know the technology behind Amity Coliseum and how to get it launched into the atmosphere, which is something that hasn't been done in Remnant as of yet, so there's still a few things that are going to have to take place here. But as I've said in previous videos, an easy way to solve a lot of problems would be to power Amity Coliseum with the Relic of Creation, considering it can keep Atlas floating, and if they so chose, they could raise Atlas all the way to the atmosphere, put the Relic of Creation onto Amity Coliseum, launch it up into the atmosphere. The Relic is now out of Salem's reach because the Grimm can't survive in the atmosphere. Amity is now being there, able to be the communications tower, restore communications across the entirety of Remnant. Salem can't get the Relic, so she technically can't win by calling back the gods. She still has the firepower to take out everyone on Remnant. That's a whole other issue entirely. The problem is, though, someone would probably have to stay on Amity for that to all be possible. Luckily, though, they have Penny, who technically doesn't need oxygen, could survive in the atmosphere, raise Amity up there, and then just kind of fall back down to Earth. Maybe she'd be able to function in the atmosphere, still fly at some capability, or at least when she re-enters the Earth's atmosphere, if she doesn't burn up in the atmosphere, she'd be able to still fly and recover, and hopefully not die. I would really hate if we just got Penny back in Volume 7 and she ends up dying again, but I kind of did get Death Flag vibes even in the Volume 7 opening, so yeah, we'll see what ends up playing up there, but it does seem that everyone is planning to get Amity up and running. It didn't seem exactly complete as of Volume 7, but maybe there was only a little bit more left to go. We'll have to wait and see on this one as well, but let me know your thoughts down in the comments below as to what you expect moving forward in regards to Amity, and how exactly they're going to get that up and running to warn the rest of the world. Evacuating Mantle seems pretty straightforward. You know, just load them all up onto ships if they can find ships that are available or find a bunker. It seems like they might be evacuating people into the mines, at least what we saw in previous previews. So that's probably where they're going to go, with it being a dust mine and there being reactive dust around everywhere. And the refugees, that doesn't really seem like the best scenario. But again, we'll see what ends up happening if, you know, the Grimm and explosions and the military. A few other things we see during this conversation is Vine actually using his weapon. He only used his semblance throughout Volume 7, and the weapon just stayed on his back. It's named Thorn, by the way. We have a name for his weapon, yet he never used it. It seems like he's going to in Volume 8, and it seems where he's fighting that there's almost a whirlwind happening around him, which would imply to me magic, maybe maiden powers, maybe Penny is actually fighting against the Aesops, or forced to at this point, using her maiden powers and trying to push them all back. That would be an interesting way for things to play out, as we do see at the end of this that with Ruby, Weiss, Blake, Nora, and Penny, they all seem to be confronting someone. Seemingly in an Atlesian facility, we can kind of see the glow of hard light dust behind them, and what looks like, you know, almost Atlas Academy, but this might be the Atlas prison facility where they're going to break out Crow and Robin, or somewhere that they are in Atlas and they have to fight against Atlesian personnel. Penny seems very wary of doing this. Nora, Ruby, and Blake seem pretty steadfast in what they're doing, and Weiss is smiling here, so she's kind of happy about whoever it is that she's going to end up fighting, so I'm curious to find out who exactly it is that they're going to be going up against. My guess is like Atlesian scientists or Atlesian personnel that Penny doesn't see as an enemy. Obviously everyone else does, and Weiss is just taking some gratification in beating up? Not exactly sure. And then the last little scene we get is Ruby hugging Penny, seemingly almost like a goodbye. Maybe this is where Penny is going to get the Relic of Creation, or perhaps relating back to my previous theory of Penny using the relic on Amity Coliseum, launching it up into the atmosphere along with herself. Could be a final goodbye. I really don't want that to be the case, but it definitely could be, and we'll have to wait and see what happens. And then we get to another familiar scene that we've seen in other little clips for Volume 8. Ironwood standing in what looks like a hospital room with the rest of the Aesops. Now, it could be a hospital room, or it could be a morgue. We do see someone seemingly underneath of a sheet. This could be, you know, Winter's legs or something like that, as she's in the hospital room getting treatment for the injuries that she sustained while fighting against Cinder. Definitely a possibility, but considering the rest of the Aesops there, I think a more likely scenario is that this is in fact a morgue, and underneath that sheet is Clover's body. Unfortunately. One thing we do see in this scene is that Ironwood does have a new arm. I initially thought this was some technological coating that Ironwood put on his arm to make it functional again, but due to some leaks that we got from some behind-the-scenes material and some concept art, etc., it looks like Ironwood may have actually, like, just completely lopped off his arm and replaced it with a new bioengineered one, which, given the situation, it makes sense, and this could also possibly be a result of his semblance, which was recently revealed to be metal, his iron will that allows him to focus on one task, seemingly to his own detriment, as now all he can think of is Atlas and nothing else. He says during the scene that Salem will destroy Atlas, and with it, any hope that humanity has left, meaning that he can't see anything past Atlas. Vacuo is apparently no hope to the world of Remnant at all. Atlas is the only hope. Same with Beacon or the remainder of Haven Academy. Like, there are still huntsmen and huntresses in the world. If everyone is brought together, you know, uniting humanity, the only way seemingly to beat Salem, well, Atlas is the only hope. None of that matters anymore. So Ironwood is definitely focused on this one task, and the Aesops are seeming to follow him to a T as well. And the final scene that we get for this entire trailer is Salem talking to the Relic as well as the Grimm, saying that she has questions for Jin. But first she needs the one to show her how. In other words, how to ask them. And we had heard this in the preview that was shown in the RTX panel for Ruby, but now we get a little bit added extra, where Salem simply says, "Bring him to me." So she's sending that Grimm after Oscar. And this is something that a lot of us had theorized. Even in the Ruby YouTubers panel that was held a few weeks back, we were all discussing who is going to be the target of this Grimm, who's going to be kidnapped. A lot of us were thinking, well, it could be Ruby. She wore the relic for a while, or held on to it for quite a while. She was the one who activated Jin previously. Maybe she had the scent of the relic and the Grimm would be sent after her. But, you know, it seems a lot more likely, especially now that Salem has said, "Bring him to me," that she's sending the Grimm after Oscar. And when we see Yang, Ren, and Jean racing across a plateau seemingly on the outskirts of Mantle, we don't see Oscar riding with them, but we do see them seemingly chasing a Grimm in the distance. And if we zoom in on that Grimm, it does look like there's an Oscar-shaped being in its clutches. So it does seem like Oscar has been kidnapped by the Grimm that Salem sent after him, and whether they rescue him or not, I think in this volume we are going to get the reunion of Ozma and Salem, and see the 15-year-old Oscar come face to face with the great evil that's plaguing the world. So we'll see how he deals with that, and if he's able to draw upon some past memories to help deal with the situation and possibly negotiate with Salem. Maybe Ozpin's going to take over. I'm really interested in seeing how that conversation is going to unfold. Not to mention seeing other characters come face to face with Salem and how those interactions will go. So that's certainly something to look forward to, as well as all of the little things that were shown in this trailer hinting at things to come in the future. What with Cinder being very obedient to Salem, Nora seemingly going to jailbreak someone, my guess being Crow or Robin. Maybe there's someone else they might jailbreak, perhaps it's Watts, that they want him to help them with Amity Coliseum. A number of different ways that could actually play out. And then of course Watts and Jacques being relevant again. We'll see how much screen time they actually have and what relevance Jacques will have to the plot of Ruby. I doubt he's going to make some grand epiphany and have this moral turnaround throughout the story, realize that he was wrong and, you know, put family first, that type of thing. We'll see what he tries to do to work his way out of things, but again, a lot to look forward to in Volume 8, and I would love to know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. It was only a minute-long trailer, and I seem to have rambled for quite a while on it, but, you know, is there anything that I missed? What other things are you looking forward to in Volume 8? We didn't see Neo in this trailer at all, and technically, we did see Crow as his hand was holding Clover's emblem, but we didn't really see him on point in this trailer. We did see Tyrion appear at one point. He somehow made it up on the whale and appeared before Salem. Maybe there's something interesting going to happen there. Salem might praise him for, I don't know, killing one of the higher-ranked military members in Atlas. That's definitely something that Tyrion accomplished last volume and might end up dying for this volume. So many things that are yet to come. If you guys are looking forward to Volume 8 and want to keep up to date with everything going on this channel, the reviews, the theories, and all of the other analyses that will be taking place, make sure to subscribe and join the Guild of the Eternal Flame. Tweet me at PhoenixKnight7, join our Discord server as well, linked in the description below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.